Use me however you want, she said. But the human just held her and said, I want you to stay. Asterisk, my pleasure protocols are still active, she said, voice soft, eyes empty. I exist to serve, if you want me, Commander. Jack Ryden froze, one hand still gripping the edge of the ruined hatch. The words didn't shock him, it was how she said them, like a machine repeating lines from memory, like she didn't believe she was even worth more than the offer. She sat there, half naked in the wreckage of the slaver pod. Her skin, a smooth pale blue, shimmered under the emergency lights. Her wrists were still bound with neural silk tech, designed to keep her docile, obedient. Her white hair hung in tangled knots over her thin shoulders. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Jack had seen plenty of wrecks. Smugglers, pirates, slavers. This wasn't his first time rescuing someone. But this was the first time the person didn't want to be saved. Not really. Most men would have heard that line, I exist to serve, and jumped at the chance. She was beautiful. More than that, crafted for beauty. She was a Thalareen. One of the last noble lines designed by ancient bioartists to be irresistible. Her body was perfect. Her voice had soft undertones meant to trigger desire. Her very scent carried traces of natural pheromones. But Jack just took off his jacket and stepped inside. He knelt slowly, wrapped the warm coat around her bare arms, and said, You're not a service module. You're someone. Once, then again, almost like the sentence didn't compute. She didn't flinch when he reached out, didn't resist, just sat there, silent and shivering. The med scanner on Jack's wrist beeped low vitals, malnourished, collapsing systems, organs failing. Her species needed very specific nutrients. None of the ones in slaver paste packets worked for her kind. Name? He asked gently. She hesitated, then whispered, Ilari. Her voice cracked halfway through the word. Dak didn't ask for a last name. He figured she didn't use it anymore. Back on his ship, the Argonaut, he laid her on a thermal bed and injected her with a mild stabilizer. The ship's AI tried to flag her as unauthorized cargo, but Jack overrode it. He didn't log her as property. He logged her as passenger, protected. She didn't speak much the first day, or the second. She ate little, slept fitfully, flinched at loud noises. Jack kept his distance, not because he was afraid of her, but because he knew what it was like. To be treated like a thing. It wasn't going to be another man who looked at her and only saw curves. It was on the third night she stood in the doorway of the galley, still wearing his oversized jacket, and said, You didn't ask for anything. He looked up from his rehydrated rations. Didn't want anything. She tilted her head. That's new. They sat in silence for a while. She watched him eat. Her eyes flicked to his hands, his arms, his chest. Her species had been designed for bonding, but not just emotionally, physically too. Human males, it turned out, were unusually compatible. She'd been told her whole life that no one would ever fit her. The pleasure would always be artificial, that her body was beautiful. But incomplete. But when Jack stood beside her, when she leaned ever so slightly into his side and felt his hand gently touch her back, she felt something she never had before, warmth, safety, and want but not fear. That night, she asked to sleep. Near him, I won't touch you, he said. I know, she replied, but he did. Not out of lust, but comfort. A hand resting lightly on her back, her fingers tangled in his shirt, and when she whimpered in her sleep and pressed her body against his, he didn't pull away. She fit against him perfectly like her body had. Been waiting for his shape her whole life? The medbot scanned her again the next morning. Something had changed. Her cell structure was repairing itself faster than expected. Jack's scent, his proximity, even the taste of his skin on her lips was stabilizing her. Biologically, they weren't just compatible. They were made for each other, even if by accident. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. And in the quiet of the Argonaut, curled up in the warmth of a human's arms, Laurie whispered, I was designed to serve, but I think I want to be chosen. Jack held her tighter and said, Then stay. She did, and what started as a rescue was only the beginning. Jack didn't sleep much after that night. Not because he was uncomfortable. Laree was small and soft and warm against him, and her breath, once shallow and ragged, had evened out into the gentle rhythm of someone who, for the first time in who knows how long, felt safe. He didn't sleep because something was happening, not just to her. To him it had been years since he let anyone that close. It's not since the Mars deployments. It's not since that incident near Io that left half his crew spaced and the rest emotionally wrecked. He wasn't built for softness anymore. But this blue-skinned woman, this broken beauty from a dead empire. She was undoing all his armor without even trying. In the morning, she surprised him. Walked into the control bay barefoot, still wearing his jacket, hairbrushed now, glowing slightly from the med patches. "You snore," she said. He blinked at her, then smirked. "Only when I'm relaxed?" She tilted her head in that way she did when she was genuinely curious. "You were relaxed with me? I think I forgot how not to be." She smiled. A real one this time, not practiced. That part of a protocol, the AI chimed, informing him that the lab results from Alary's updated scan were ready. Jack pulled up the data and stared. For a moment, he didn't speak. "Then you're stabilizing." Ilari stepped closer. "Right." He didn't answer right away. Just looked at the chart again. Not just good, miraculous. Her organs, once near collapse, were regenerating. Protein absorption normalized, hormonal levels synchronized. Even her neural feedback was showing signs of adaptive bonding something. Number Thalareen was ever supposed to do with a human? Jack looked up at her. "Do you feel different?" She nodded slowly. "It's hard to explain. My body doesn't ache anymore. I feel light. I feel aware." She paused, then added in a whisper, "I feel like myself." Jack leaned back in the chair. His mind was racing. This was more than just an accident of biology. It was a revelation. Every species had assumed the Thalareen couldn't pair with humans, culturally, sexually, biologically. They were too delicate, too complex. But Jack was triggering something. Deep in her system, compatibility the slavers and geneticists had never considered. "You're adapting to me," he said. Alari stepped even closer. Her eyes shimmered silver. Or maybe I was always meant to. That night, she didn't just ask to sleep beside him. She chose to. They lay together on the auxiliary bunk in the aft quarters. Jack had cleaned it earlier that day, though he hadn't expected to share it so soon. Ilari curled into him, one arm over his chest, her head nestled in the crook of his neck. Her skin was warm now, almost hot. Her breath against his collarbone made him shiver not from cold, but from something he hadn't felt since he was young and reckless and stupidly hopeful. Desire she whispered something in Thalareen against his skin. He didn't know the words, but he knew what they meant. She wanted him, and not because she'd been programmed to, not because it was protocol, because she chose him. He rolled to face her, brushing her hair gently behind her ear. "Do?" "Sure," she nodded, lips trembling. For once, I want it to be me saying yes. Their first kiss wasn't explosive. It was hesitant, slow. Her lips soft, curious, his hands steady, deliberate. When their bodies finally met, it wasn't perfect. It was better, natural, right. Her body fit. Him like they'd been sculpted for each other. Her moans weren't trained. They were raw. Her movements not practiced. They were hers. She cried afterward. He did too. Not out of pain. Out of relief they had survived so much. And now, they were starting something entirely new. The medbot beeped again in the corner, like a chaperone that didn't know when to leave. Jack glanced at the display. Cross-species. Neural pairing initiated. Bonding pheromones stabilized. Reproductive compatibility. Optimal. Jack laughed. Laurie did too, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. She looked at him and whispered, "I think my body just chose you." He kissed her forehead. "Then it's got good taste." For the next few days, something bloomed between them. Quiet but intense. They worked together to refit parts of the ship. She helped him recalibrate the food processor to replicate Thalareen flora. He built her a private quarters, even though she never used it. She always came back to his bed. But it wasn't just sex. It was home. One evening, Thalareen found a small mirror tucked in a drawer near the engine room. She held it up and stared at her reflection for a long time. Jack found her there and said nothing, until she whispered, "I don't look like a slave anymore." He stepped behind her and rested his chin on her shoulder. "You don't," he agreed. "You look like you," for the first time since he'd found her on that broken ship. Thalareen smiled at her own reflection. Neither of them knew what came next, but they both knew this. Whatever it was, they'd face it together, and it was already better than either of them ever dared to dream. Asterisk, they didn't get to enjoy the calm for long. On the 6th day, just as the Argonaut slipped past the rim of the Chiron belt, the warning light flared. "Read on the nav console." Jack sat up from his bunk, shirtless, pulse spiking. "Unidentified signal locked. Long-range tracking beacon activated." Thalareen was already awake, eyes glowing faintly in the dim cabin light. She didn't need to ask. She felt it in her bones. The Thalareen call it scent memory, a kind of inherited instinct. Right now, her body was reacting like prey sensing. A predator. "They've found me," she said quietly. Jack stood, already pulling on his gear. "You're sure?" She nodded. "It's not a government signal. It's old, dirty, slaver-grade tech. Coded in a way only people like my former buyer would use." Jack didn't curse, didn't panic. He just moved, pulled the ship out of autopilot, locked in a short range evasive course. Killed non-essential systems. Thalareen followed him to the cockpit. "They won't stop," she said, voice steady but low. "Not until they take me back." Jack turned to her, jaw clenched. "Then we don't let them." She blinked. "Jack, you don't understand. My kind, we were bred to be desirable, but also trackable. Our bodies release a low-level trace signal when we bond. It's supposed to keep owners from losing their investment." She touched her neck. "When we, you and I..." Jack's expression hardened. "They're tracking you through me now." She swallowed. "I didn't mean to mark you." "You didn't," Jack said. "We marked each other." The ship jolted slight, but enough to make her stumble. Jack caught her waist instantly, pulling her close. She looked up at him, heart thudding. Not from fear this time, from how safe she felt in his arms, even while the universe burned around. "They'll try to board," she whispered. "Then we make sure they regret it." What neither of them expected was who actually came. It wasn't a slaver ship, not a smuggler skiff. It was a diplomatic courier, sleek, clean, flying. A modified Thalareen Royal Crest. One Jack had only seen in old war briefings. When the comms pinged, the voice that came through was soft, female, but ice-cold. "Thalareen Visari, by order of the Regency Council of Volumenthal, you are to be returned for reassessment. Failure to comply will result in escalation." Thalareen flinched at the name. She hadn't heard it in years. It's not since they wiped it from her records. Visari, her mother's house. The one that fell in scandal when Thalareen was deemed defective, too sensitive, too frail, too emotional. She stepped forward and spoke into the console. "I am not property," she said. "I have chosen my path. You have no claim on me." Its voice didn't change. "You have bonded with a human. That was unauthorized. Dangerous. Your genome must be recalibrated. We're authorized to extract both of you." Jack stared at the console. "They're not here for you. They're here for us." Thalareen looked at him, tears rising. "They'll dissect what we are, study our bond, break it, break me." His voice was calm, solid. "Then we don't give them the chance." He turned back to the ship's systems and initiated a manual override sequence. "I'm going to run cold. No shields, no weapons. Just one burn through the lower asteroid belt. It's risky." She touched his hand. "I trust you." He nodded, and something in his chest swelled. She wasn't a passenger anymore. She was his partner. When the ship dropped into the belt, the chasers hesitated. Jack cut everything, lights, thrusters, even life support for 12 seconds. The Argonaut drifted between rocks the size of small cities, cloaked in cold silence. Inside the cockpit, Jack and Alari sat shoulder to shoulder, hands clasped, breathing together. Her skin glowed faintly in the dark. She leaned against him not from fear but from knowing that if she had to die, she'd rather do it here than ever go back. The pursuers didn't follow. Jack kept the ship drifting until the sensors cleared. Then he restarted the systems and brought power back online. Only when they were safe again did Alari finally speak. "They'll come again." Jack nodded. "Let them." She looked at him for a long time, then said, "I want to stay with you. Not because I have to. Not because I was made for it. Because you make me feel like I belong in my own skin." Jack reached for her hand. Kissed her knuckles. "You're not mine," he said. "You're yours. I'm just lucky you chose me." That night they didn't talk about the chase, or the threats, or the future. They just lay in the quiet of their small ship, her back pressed against his chest, his arms wrapped tight around her waist. Her fingers curled over his breathing slow, two hearts beating in the same rhythm, and in that silence, something stronger than fear bloomed. Bond, real and irreversible. Whatever came next for, exile or freedom, they would face it together. Not because biology demanded it, but because love had finally chosen them both. Asterisk, they didn't talk about the chase the next day, not out loud, anyway. But it lingered between them in the way Jack always kept one hand near the emergency console, and how Alari kept watching him like she might never get another chance. He caught her staring while eating breakfast, chewing on a ration cube like it was some 5-star meal. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded too quickly, then paused, touched her stomach gently. "Just warm," she said, almost confused. "Here." He looked up, frowning. "Pain? No. Just different." He ran a med scan just in case. Her vitals were stable, more than stable. Her endocrine system was operating at record efficiency. Cellular healing rates were up. Nutrient absorption was better than any human on record. And her pheromones, through the roof. "Either you're becoming a supermodel, or your body's going into overdrive," he muttered. She blinked. "My kind was designed to respond to ideal environments." 2. Positive intimacy. Jack raised a brow. "You mean?" "Sex." Alari flushed pale violet. "That too." She paused, then added in a whisper, "But this is something more. I feel safe, valued. My body isn't just recovering, Jack. It's changing." Jack stared at the med pad. "Your DNA's rewriting itself." She nodded. "You're triggering a secondary bonding response. A level that's extremely rare. Possibly myth." He sat back slowly. "What kind of response?" Her fingers traced his palm. Her touch was soft, reverent, the kind that prepares us to create life. Silence. Real silence. Not awkward, but heavy. Jack stared at her, heart thudding. "Are you?" Saying, "I don't know yet," she said. "It doesn't happen often. Thalareen women weren't built to breed freely, only with permission. With implants. With control." She looked up at him. "But you didn't force me. You didn't claim me. You held me when I cried. You fed me like I was worth something. And when we were together, my body responded, like it found the one match it was always looking for." Jack exhaled. A long, slow breath. They sat like that for a while, fingers intertwined. No words needed. Later, Alari moved through the ship differently, not timid like before, not cautious. Curious, she poked through the storage lockers, tried on his shirts, rewired one of the cabin lights. She frilly laughed for the first time when it sparked, and zapped her wrist. Jack rushed over, but she waved him off, giggling. "I didn't burn. I just got tickled by electricity." He shook his head, smiling. "Your trouble. I'm alive," she said, still laughing. "It feels new." That night, she didn't just crawl into bed beside him. She climbed on top, her body warm. Eyes hungry, not desperate, playful. "I want to feel it again." she whispered. "The way you touch me, like I'm not a machine." Jack wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her down to him. "That's because you never were." The way she moved on him that night wasn't about technique or training. It was instinct. A rhythm. A surrender to something older than any. Empire hormones weren't performed. They were real, wild, soft, then sharper. Her fingers dug into his chest when she came, and her skin lit up like bioluminescent silk. When it was over, she collapsed on his chest, body slick and glowing, breath trembling. Something pulsed under her ribs. A new heartbeat, not hers. Jack noticed. Two, they both looked down. The med pad on the nightstand blinked once. Embryonic signal detected. Secondary organ formation in progress? Jack stared at the words. Then, at her. She covered her mouth. Jack, he took her hand, kissed her. Knuckles, we're going to be okay. But how doesn't matter, he said. Whatever's growing in there, it's ours. Tears filled her eyes. Not fear, not sorrow. Wonder. I didn't think I could carry life, she whispered. Jack pulled her close. You're not carrying it alone. The rest of the night was quiet, just the hum of the ship. The hearts three, now beating in perfect sync. Somewhere out in the stars, old laws and cold empires were hunting her, looking for her DNA, trying to erase the future before it could grow. But in here, a miracle had already begun, and this time, it wasn't engineered. It was born of choice, love, and one undeniable. Universe-breaking fact, humans weren't just compatible, they were superior, and now, they were family. Jack wasn't sure what changed. First, maybe it was the way Thalareen stood, a little taller, now shoulders. It's no longer hunched in fear, but squared with quiet pride. Or maybe it was the way she touched her stomach sometimes, absent-mindedly, like there was already something alive in there whispering to her soul. Or maybe it was the transmission, encrypted, masked as background cosmic static. But Jack had been in enough covert ops to know a ping when he heard one. He was in the cockpit, staring out at the cold stars, when the comms panel lit up. Asterisk confirmed anomaly. Thalareen variant genome fusion detected. Embryonic state probable. Alert all royal. Council members, prepare retrieval protocols. Jack didn't move at first. Then he leaned forward, hit the console, and played it again. They knew. They knew what Thalareen was carrying. And they weren't just curious, they were coming. He walked back to the sleeping quarters where she was curled on the bed, wrapped in one of his jackets, humming softly to herself. Not a song, just comfort. He sat down beside her. She opened her eyes instantly. She always sensed him. Something's wrong, she said, sitting up. Jack nodded. They know you're pregnant. Hands slid over her belly. That fast? They must have tracked the biological signal. Or maybe they were already watching for it. Either way, they're mobilizing. She didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she looked him in the eye and said something he'd never heard her say. Before let them come, he blinked. You're not afraid? I'm always afraid, she said softly. But now I have you. And something inside me that doesn't belong to their design. She paused. It belongs to us. The next few days were tense. They drifted near a broken gas station on the edge of a red dwarf system. Silent, masked, cloaked in power-saving mode. Jack ran interference. Thalareen meditated. The child inside her, whatever it was, continued to grow at an accelerated pace. The medbot chirped daily updates. Neural lattice forming ahead of schedule. Dual species brainwave resonance detected. Bone density enhanced. Skin pigmentation beginning to shift. Thalareen smiled the first time she saw the scan. The fetus, still barely the size of her palm, was glowing faintly, part human, They'll want to take it, she corrected. And dissect it, he said darkly. Her hand found his. Then we don't let them. That night, they didn't make love like before. There was no fire, no urgency, only closeness. Jack held her like she might disappear. She fell asleep with her cheek on his bare chest, hand pressed over his heart. His fingers ran gently through her hair. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Anything. If they get to us, if they try to use me or the baby." "Won't let them." She turned her head up. Her silver eyes shimmered. "No, I mean don't let them take you either. Promise me that you'll stay free, even if I can't." Jack leaned down, pressed his lips to her forehead and whispered, "We live free or not at all." He meant it. The next morning, the ship rocked, sensors flashing red. They were no longer hidden. Thalareen escort cruisers, not slavers, not pirates, official, armored, clean. Dangerous. The coms came in a moment later. "This is Royal Intervention Fleet Thalareen. Surrender the bonded genetic asset. Your life will be spared. Refusal will result in boarding." Alari stood beside Jack, staring at the screen. "Bonded genetic asset," she repeated, voice cold. Jack flexed his fingers. "They're not even pretending you're a person. They never did." He turned to her. "We could run. I could boost the drive. Slingshot around the gas giant. We'd burn fuel. Risk the ship. But we might lose them." She was quiet then. "No. If we run, they'll keep chasing. Forever. I want them to see me choose. I want them to see me stand, not beg." Jack gave a slow, steady nod. They suited up, not in armor, not in weapons gear, in dignity. She wore a plain black robe over her belly, one of Jack's repurposed shirts underneath. He wore his old mission jacket, faded, burned at the collar, patched with silver tape. They looked like runaways, refugees, but they stood like warriors. When the Thalareen delegation boarded, they entered with 3 guards, a bioscanner, and a woman dressed in shimmering violet silk, who looked like Alari, only older, harder, hollow. "Vasari," the woman said coolly, "you shame your house." Alari held Jack's hand. "I left that house when they sold me like cattle." The woman sneered, "You're carrying something unnatural, a hybrid abomination." Jack stepped forward. "She's carrying hope, something your kind forgot how to make." The guard stepped forward. The scanner blinked. Viable cross-species. Fetus. Stable. Strong. Projected survival. 98%. The woman stared at the result. Her eyes flickered not, just with anger but fear. This isn't possible." Alari smiled, just slightly. "No, it's humanity, isn't. It." One of the guards reached for her. Jack didn't hesitate. He moved like lightning, slammed the man back into the wall. Second tried to pull his weapon jack, disarmed him in 2 moves, and shattered his mask. The third looked at Jack, looked at Ilari, then stepped back. The woman raised a hand. Enough. It was too late. The moment was done. Jack stood between them, blood on his knuckles, eyes locked on her. "You want her?" he growled. "Come through me." Silence then. Slowly, the woman turned away. "This isn't over." "You're right," Ilari said. "It's just beginning." The Thalareen left, and Jack and Ilari stood together in the quiet hum of the ship, shaking, sweating. Free, he turned to her. You okay? She nodded slowly, touching her belly. They're going to come again. Jack grinned. Let them bring everything they've got. He kissed her. Long, slow, deep. And in that moment, they weren't fugitives. They were something more powerful than empires. A man, a woman, and a future no one could control. A family. And it was only the beginning. Asterisk. They didn't stay in open space. It was too risky now. Every system pulse, every signal could trigger a pursuit. The Thalareen fleet wouldn't stop not after seeing what she was carrying, so Jack made a decision. They went dark. Deep dark. A course into the Sendar Drift, a half-forgotten stretch of uncharted dust clouds, gravitational shears, and broken worlds abandoned after the early expansion wars. Most ships avoided it. Too many black holes, too many signal disruptions. No refuel stations. No civilization. But Jack remembered a file. A hidden Terran outpost, once built as a listening post during the early human colonial conflicts. It was never officially shut down, just erased from the maps when the politics changed. He called it the Arya Station. Alari called it home, the moment they arrived. It took 2 weeks of slow drifting engine cuts and cloak-shifting burns. But they made it. The station appeared through the haze like a sleeping giant half-covered in ice, coated in space moss but still holding together. Its dome shimmered faintly, automatic systems flickering to life as the Argonaut docked inside. It was cold, cracked, ancient, but breathable. Jack opened the main hatch. Welcome to the worst hotel in the galaxy. Ilari stepped inside, eyes wide. She didn't laugh. She looked around like she was standing in a cathedral. She touched a wall. It's quiet. He nodded. No signals. No tracking. Grid, this place is a ghost. She smiled softly. Then let's give it a soul. That first night, they slept on the floor of the central hub blankets, a salvaged heating coil, and each other. Jack's arm around her waist, her cheek against his chest. The stars above the dome blinked like slow, steady heartbeats, and her stomach round her now, visibly pulsing with the rhythm of the life inside, was warm beneath his hand. In the days that followed, they began to rebuild. He repaired the solar buffers. She reactivated the hydroponic bay. They cleared the med bay first. It became their new home, place where he could monitor the pregnancy, and where she could rest in clean light and warm silence. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was growing, glowing. Even her skin shimmered faintly in the filtered sunlight. Her hair, once tangled and dull, now flowed like molten silk. Her voice softer, deeper. Every word she spoke seemed filled with something sacred. And the baby. Perfect. The scans showed accelerated neurodevelopment, a hybrid nervous system faster than human, more adaptive than Thalareen. Dual organ compatibility, emotional resonance even in utero. That double quotes this child, Jack said one night. Running his fingers along her curved stomach could change everything. She looked at him, sleepy but smiling. I don't want them to change the galaxy. He blinked. No, just want them to be loved. Jack leaned in, kissed her slowly, lips brushing her cheek, then her collarbone, then her belly.
Oh.
Baby kicked. Ilari gasped and laughed. You felt that too? She whispered. He nodded. Kids got opinions. They worked together through the days. He taught her how to reroute circuits with just a knife and wire. She taught him the ancient Thalareen centrituals meant to calm the body and bond the soul. They planted herbs from the old seed stock, repurposed storage tanks into makeshift nurseries. They laughed when the algae overflowed. They danced in the echoing silence of the station's central corridor. They even argued over soup, over temperature settings, over how many pillows one person really needed, but they always made up, always touched after, always whispered the truth. I choose you. Every day and every night, when she curled into his chest and he ran his fingers over her growing belly. Jack thought something strange. He'd never meant to fall in love. Never. Meant to save anyone. But now, in this quiet place far from war and noise and empire, he had something he didn't know he'd been missing. A family. One night, as the dome shimmered under the shimmer light and Jack stirred nutrient paste for dinner, Ilari stepped up behind him, arms wrapped around his waist. "You know this isn't going to last forever," she said quietly. He turned, lifting her chin. "I know they'll come one day. With fire and law and words wrapped in chains." He nodded. "And we'll be ready." She pressed her forehead to his. "We're not fighters, Jack." He smiled gently. "Maybe not. But we're something. More dangerous? More dangerous than warriors?" "Yeah," he said. "We're parents." She laughed softly, then kissed him, slow and sweet, and said, "Let's finish building the world we want them to grow up in." He held her close, felt the baby move. And in that moment, Jack knew they could run, they could hide. But what they had already created here, love, family, a child born not of empire or command, dumbed but of choice, was more powerful than any fleet. And whatever came next, they wouldn't just survive it. They'd define it. Asterisk the baby came during the storm. Not a natural storm. There weren't any of those on Aria Station. But a reactor surge in the outer solar panels had knocked the heating grid offline. The sky above the dome flashed with plasma flickers, and deep in the belly of the station, the lights pulsed red and low like a warning heartbeat. Ilari went into labor at 3:07 Standard Time. Jack barely had time to activate the medbed before she doubled over, gripping the frame with both hands, teeth clenched. "It's early," she gasped. He caught her before she fell. "Not by much. You said the baby was growing fast? Not this fast." She screamed once, not in pain, but something more primal. Like the universe was tearing open inside her and pouring through her spine. Jack held her hand. Sweat rolled down her blue skin, her body trembling under the biolights. "I can't," she whispered. Double quotes. "Yes, you can." He kissed her temple, kept his voice steady. "You've survived worse. You've survived everything. And now, you bring life into the world." A contraction hit. Ah! Her back arched. The monitors flared. Dual heartbeats. Stable. Strong. The birth was fast. Intense. And then, there she was, wrapped in soft cloth, barely longer than Jack's forearm, glowing. Faintly beneath the medlight, blue skin darker than Ilari's, hair like spun silver. Tiny ridges at the brow, soft, undeveloped. Fingers that curled instinctively toward warmth, and eyes that opened almost immediately. Wide and calm Jack's eyes. He stared at her, completely still, yes, as if the universe had stopped to breathe. Ilari reached out, barely able to speak. "Let me hold her." Jack placed the child in her arms. The baby curled in immediately, as if she'd always belonged there. "She's so warm," Ilari whispered. Jack knelt beside them both. "What do we name her?" Ilari smiled, weak but radiant. "Leora." Jack blinked. "What does it mean?" Ilari looked at him, voice soft, born of light in a place that forgot it existed. He leaned in and kissed both mother and child. And then the station sensors pinged. Multiple warp signatures detected. The screen in the main console lit up with 9 inbound ships, Thalareen and human, a joint task force. Not here for violence, here for a verdict. Jack swore under his breath. Ilari didn't flinch. She sat up, cradling the baby, skin glowing in the dim light. "She's barely minutes old," Jack said. Ilari looked out through the glass dome toward the approaching ships. "Then they'll see her at her most powerful." He helped her too. The central platform. She stood barefoot in the cold, robe wrapped around her, Leora in her arms, calm as ever. The lead shuttle touched down. From it emerged a delegation, one Thalareen diplomat. Expression unreadable, and a high-ranking human. Observer, in full Earth Union regalia, Jack stood beside Ilari. His arm around her waist, no weapons, just presence. The Thalareen delegates stepped forward. We received your beacon. Jack blinked. What beacon? The delegate nodded. Toward Leora. You didn't send it. She did. Allery's eyes widened. At the neural resonance. Jack looked down at the baby in her arms, still watching. She had already broadcast a signal across the stars. Not with tech, with biology. The child was calling. The delegate's voice was different now. Softer. You've created what we never. Could a bond that bypasses design? A child that bridges to species, to histories? The Earth Union observer spoke next. Our scans confirm viability. No defects. No instability, in fact. She surpasses both human and Thalareen standards in almost every measurable category. Jack folded his arms. And now what? You study her, cage her, turn her into a test subject? No, the Thalareen said. Everyone stood still. Then he did something no one expected. He bowed low. Deep to you. Both of you, Alari gasped. You don't want to take her? The delegate shook his head. We want to learn from you. From her. She chooses to teach. The Earth observer nodded. She's not just a new life. She's a new future. Reached out and took Allery's hand. We're not leaving this station, he said. This is her home, and we'll build around it, said the human envoy. A new kind of embassy. One where love and biology, not politics, led. Just like that. They weren't fugitives anymore. They were founders. That night, after the delegations departed with promises of peace and distance, Jack stood on the edge of the dome, holding his daughter in his arms. She stared up at him with those ancient eyes, and reached for his chin. He smiled. Your mom saved me, he whispered. And you? You changed everything. Behind him, Alari wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her cheek against his back. I never thought I'd be free, she said. You're not just free, Jack replied. You're loved. They stood like that under the starsman. Woman, child, human, A-L-A-R-E-N. And something more, family. A new kind of power, not forged in war, but born of touch, choice, and the greatest strength the galaxy had ever underestimated, the human heart. And for the first time, the stars didn't feel empty. They felt like home, the end, or maybe the beginning of something even bigger.